Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in once again to Queen Amadai TV Presents True Crimes. So, as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time that I go live on this channel. Okay, hello, Melanated Brown, One Who Cares, Irma, Emma's Blessed, Susan. All right, now I love you right, Black Susan. Okay, so let's get into it, people. I have two stories. We're going to be doing them back to back, all right, of clearly nefariousness, no less. So this first story is about a 15-year-old girl. Her case went unsolved for years, okay? She was killed, and they didn't find her body for a minute, and then they didn't know who did it until years later. So let's talk about it. Jessica King. Now, Jessica was a 15-year-old cheerleader, and she was murdered in a desolate cemetery. Now, the details of the case are as follows. On March 16th of 1991, a Madison County, Ohio teenager was abducted and raped. Her clothes had been torn off, but somehow she had escaped into a cemetery, only to end up hiding behind tombstones. Now, she attempted to flee the graveyard, but in the pitch black of night, she smashed into a fence post. Once her assailant caught up to her, she was struck in the head and face with a blunt object and left there to die. Her name was Jessica Lynn King, and she was 15 years old. Now, later, investigators were able to pinpoint Jessica's final moments based on the clues in the areas around the crime scene. There was mud on the fence, a sock that belonged to her was found, and an impression of her knee was in the ground, like maybe she had been kneeling. But the police didn't have a clue as to who did this or why anyone had wanted to kill her. Now, the gruesome murder of Jessica Lynn King baffled local and state detectives for years. She had been a popular school cheerleader, an honor student, and a talented performer. This is all according to her mother. And she also said that her mother Rebecca said that Jessica had many goals and dreams. She said Jessica idealistically would have loved to have been a singer and actress, or more realistically, because she loves animals, maybe she would have gone to college to become a zoologist. Okay? Now, in high school, Jessica's life began to have its ups and downs. It had to do with being a teenager and with meeting her first love, 18-year-old Sean Thompson. Now, Jessica's relationship with Sean was new and exciting. But according to her mother, the romance began to become a distraction. Jessica was no longer doing her homework as she was supposed to be doing, and her grades were kind of dropping. She says, I had forbidden her to see Sean. I said, you can't see him until your grades come up. And as far as her going to college, she knew that she'd have to keep a good grade average in order to get the scholarship that she wanted. And her grades started dropping. Now, she skipped school a couple of times to be with Sean also. And of course, she was threatening, saying, I don't want to live with you anymore. But I knew I had to do something. Now, this is what her mother said. Now, so Jessica was white, and she was dating a black teen named Sean that went to school with her. And her mother said they were having, she really was getting upset because Jessica was spending so much time with Sean that she wasn't doing her work. So she actually took Jessica and put her in this facility at one point, for like kids who just are unruly or whatever. And because she was trying to get her to comply with whatever she wanted her to do. So anyway, Jessica came home and she was right back with Sean. Now, arguments between Jessica and her mother soon escalated. They both knew that they needed a cooling off period. The mother and daughter mutually decided that Jessica should spend at least 2 weeks in a local live-in counseling center for teenagers. So on March the 15th, the day before she was to move back home, and just hours before she died, Jessica spoke to her boyfriend, Sean. Now, according to Special Agent Greg Costas of the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Jessica became upset. They say Jessica and Sean ended up getting into an argument that day on the telephone, at which point they broke up. Numerous people witnessed this telephone call and said that Jessica was very visibly upset. After the call, Jessica told a friend that she was going to the mall. Now, She was last seen at a bus stop near the counseling center at 6 p.m. It was there that Special Agent Costas suspected that she was then abducted. Now, they say there is a chance that maybe it was somebody who knew Jessica, or someone she kind of knew, maybe wasn't really good friends with, but familiar with nonetheless, was able to trust them enough to get in the car, not knowing what would ultimately happen. This is what they were assessing at the beginning before they found out further details. Now, Jessica's body was found 42 hours later, 20 miles from the bus stop. Investigators believe that after Jessica was abducted, she must have been held captive for at least 6 hours, based on a semen sample that Special Agent Costas believed, that led him to believe that she had been raped between 2 and 4 hours before her escape from the car. He says, I don't think she had any idea at the time that she was actually climbing into a cemetery to hide. But at that point, that was her only means of getting away from whoever was chasing her. Now, this is the area where the crime scene investigators found one of Jessica's socks. She obviously lost it while she was running. Now, according to Special Agent Costas, the sock that was found matched the one that remained on Jessica's foot. So that's how they knew it was hers. They say, we know that she hid behind this headstone. That was based on the crime scene investigators who found her knee prints in the soft ground behind the stone. So she was kneeling down behind the tombstone, obviously hiding from whoever was after her. They said, we are pretty certain that Jessica saw the light on the farmhouse. Now, and that's why she turned to run. So when she was running, she obviously collided with a fence post in the back of the cemetery. Because it's so dark out here at night, she was not able to see the fence back there and collided with the fence post. Once she collided with the fence, she probably knocked herself down. And at that point, her assailant was able to catch up to her. This is the spot where she was ultimately killed. Now, I've never been so passionate about anything that I've ever worked on in my life. This is what the agent said. The thought of this young girl, 15 years old, and who had such a bright future being murdered is such a horrible thought, horrible fashion also. You cannot help but want to do everything humanly possible to find out who did this. Now, sheriffs in Madison County, they soon turned their attention to Jessica's boyfriend. Because first of all, let's not forget he's Black. And second of all, let's not forget they had an argument that day on the phone and people witnessed it and said Jessica was visibly upset. So they turned their attentions on her boyfriend, Sean Thompson. But he wasn't even in Columbus. He had left for Florida with some friends, according to Sheriff Stephen Saltzman. Sean and his friends were eventually returned to Ohio. So let me tell you something, honey. He better be glad that he left and went on that trip, because I guarantee you they likely would have pinned it on him. Now, Sean was questioned. The friends that had gone with him were also questioned. And through the questioning, examination of physical evidence and all of that, we all but eliminated the boyfriend and his friends as suspects. DNA evidence from the semen sample did not match Sean or any of the others. The group was cleared of any wrongdoing. But for investigators, an entire week had been lost. The trail of the actual killer or killers had grown cold. Still, Jessica's death never stopped haunting her mother. She says, what they did to her, the fear that Jessica must have felt, she would do anything to get away. And I can feel her heartbeat running through the cemetery. I can feel the deep breathing she was probably doing when she knelt to hide behind that tombstone. I can hear her praying. And I realized that that was the worst thing that I believe anyone could have to go through. So then 17 years later, to the day that she was murdered, authorities matched a DNA sample from her case to a convicted felon named Marvin Lee Smith Jr. And he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. But hold on, because there's more. Because you see, once they arrested Marvin, he told them the story of what really happened that night. So let's get into it. So here's what he says happened. Suspect admits that he raped and murdered Westland cheerleader in 1991. So at 6:05 p.m. in London, Ohio, it was 18 years from the date that Jessica King had been found dead. But in the middle of a packed Madison County courtroom, justice finally came for Jessica Lynn King. Marvin Lee Smith, a convicted felon formerly from Short North, stood up and admitted that he raped and murdered the 15-year-old girl, the Westland High School cheerleader, back in 1991. Excuse me. It was a 15-year delay. Now, in a deal that spared his life, because they were clearly going to give him the death penalty or maybe life in prison, right? So he took a deal that spared his life and prevented a death penalty trial that was supposed to begin March the 9th. Smith pleaded guilty to a charge of aggravated murder with specifications of rape and kidnapping. 3 judges sentenced him to 30 years to life in prison. King was struggling in school and back at home in 1991. So she was staying at the Huckleberry House, a safe house and crisis center in Columbus for runaway and troubled teens. Smith snatched her from a Windland Park bus stop about 6 p.m. on March the 15th. Now, here's the thing. I do think she was going to meet her boyfriend when she was snatched. She had walked to the bus stop, told her friend she was going to the mall, and I think she's supposed to be meeting up with her boyfriend. But anyway, she was abducted from the bus stop, right? So her body, wearing only a torn and twisted bra and a dirty sock, was found 2 days later at Foster Chapel Cemetery in Madison County. Now, prosecutors and defense attorneys recounted yesterday, this is when this all happened, which I believe was, let me see what year this was. Hold on. I think it was 2009. When he was captured. So anyway, they say that prosecutors and defense attorneys recounted what Smith had said. They say that once Smith got King near the cemetery that Friday night after dark, she escaped. A trail of footprints in the mud, pieces of duct tape, and her other sock marked her trail as she ran for her life. Now, eventually, King ran into a fence post and fell down. Then Smith jerked a 70-pound tombstone out of the ground. Now, do you know how much strength it takes to do that? He snatched a 70-pound tombstone up out of the ground. He snatched it out of an old grave and beat her with it until it splits in 2. Investigators found its 2 pieces, both stained with blood, thrown over the cemetery fence. Jessica's mother, Rebecca Smitley, left the courtroom as Sheriff Jim Sabin described the scene at the cemetery. Later, Smitley said she never gave up hope that this day would come. She says, I can feel Jessica's heart beating as she ran for her life. I can hear her hiding behind tombstones, and I can hear her praying. Now, Smith had been charged with assaults against 2 Columbus women and was out on bond when King disappeared. He was never considered a suspect in her death. He eventually was convicted for the 2 Columbus attacks and served 9 years in prison. While he was incarcerated, the laws changed, and as a convicted felon of a violent crime, he had to submit a DNA sample for a state database. Meanwhile, King's case grew old. It became a cold case. Now, then the state crime lab technicians used technology and found that Smith's DNA matched evidence from King's rape and murder. Agent Greg Costas of the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation and Sabin found Smith living in Burlington, North Carolina. They went and got him to give up new DNA samples just to be sure. Now, Smith was indicted that May and extradited to Ohio to face those charges. In the courtroom, Smith said nothing on his own behalf. He simply dropped his shoulders and sobbed as King's family addressed him, but he never once looked them in the face. Now, Heather Tallett, King's older sister for about 4 years, reminded him that he stole so much more than a young girl's life. Everything in my life, she said, is measured against her loss. Time is marked before and after her death. I miss her so. Whew. So that was ghastly. My Lord, what in the world? That was a demon for sure. Yes, absolutely, right? Ray Williams says, Queen, you never leave the scene. After all, I love all dreams and sweet ice cream. That's how I know you're so supreme. Ray Williams, I cannot with you, okay? Now I'm going to put you on punishment for keep it up. So I hope you all enjoyed that nefarious tale. That is very sad. A 15-year-old girl already going through struggles at home because her mother didn't want her dating her boyfriend. Her grades were dropping. Stayed in a counseling place for 2 weeks, only to get out and be abducted from a bus stop and killed, raped, and murdered, and running for her life. And can you imagine being killed in a cemetery? The irony of it all. That's just really sad. Silent D says, this is just way too much for that to happen to that young girl. Yes, very sad. Very sad. Okay. Nene says ads because she monetized again. Yes, absolutely. This channel is officially monetized, people. So if you see ads, don't worry. That just means I'm getting paid. Okay? Please. So with that all being said, Teacher says, how in the world do you beat someone with a tombstone? That poor child. Yes. Rain Love said the thirst is real, Queen. Malik says, or they planted evidence, they very well may have set their brother up. They just set his behind up, and you know it. That man admitted that he did it, and his DNA was there. His DNA was right there. Oh, my goodness. Louise says, lots of demons running around, Queen. Absolutely. Judah Queen says, no, I couldn't imagine. Well, let me tell y'all something, honey. Beloveds, if you all thought this was nefarious, honey, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till we get to the next story. Now, I'm about to start that one right now. So please join the Queen in the next chat. TJ says, oh, okay, Queen. I was about to say. Please join me in the next chat, okay? Because this next story is even worse than this one. And we have actual footage. All right, so that all being said, I want to thank you all. Alvin says, killed in the cemetery. Yes, can you imagine? So everyone, please like and share the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time I go live on this channel. Thank you all for tuning in once again. And please join the Queen in the next chat. Peace.